Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 150. Thank you for joining us. Today, Bonnie and I are joined by homeschooling mother of 10 and liturgical living guru, Kendra Tierney. In addition to sharing her homeschooling experiences and what it's like to film a cooking show in her own home with all of her children, we hear about how bringing the liturgical life into our homes helps us to incorporate the joy and beauty of the faith into our daily lives. We certainly enjoyed our time with Kendra, and we hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, liturgical musician, popcorn and podcast fanatic, and Kolbe homeschooling mom to 4 lads and lasses of middle and high school age.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Stephen, how's your week going?
Week is going very well here. We've had a warm spell here in the Midwest, or the southern Midwest, so it's a taste of spring.
Oh, good. Okay. Here too, and maybe we'll yet be surprised by another blast of winter, but hopefully not. Hopefully it's going to stay nice. Our guest today is Mrs. Kendra Tierney, likely a name known to many of our listeners thanks to her website Catholic All Year or her show on Formed. Hi, Kendra. Welcome to the Kolbecast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's a delight to meet you. It's a real treat for me. I've been a longtime blog reader of yours and followed your family doings for a long time, and I've gotten a lot out of what you shared about your family culture and the intentionality around living your faith, ways that you've handled things that have come up in family life, so forth. And I appreciate you sharing so much of that with us. It's been really instructive and inspirational. I imagine many of our listeners are familiar with you, but for those who are not, would you tell us about yourself and your family, your homeschool connection, and those sorts of things?
Yeah, we live in Southern California, in the unincorporated LA County, the foot of the mountains that are currently covered in snow, which is unusual for us.
Yes.
I have 10 children. The oldest is 20 and a junior at the engineering school at USC. And I've got another daughter in college, and my youngest is 3. So I've got some homeschooling years ahead of me. I started homeschooling my oldest son when he was in kindergarten. So it's been a long haul.
Been at it for a while. I'm sure there's a lot we can learn from you and how you have made it work in your homeschool, which is always a fun topic for us to discuss here on the Kolbecast. We are always curious. How do you do it? How do you make it work? So before we get there, though, would you tell us about Catholic All Year, how it came about and how it's grown?
I think homeschool moms will be, all parents will be familiar with the constant barrage of questions that you get from little kids. And so Catholic All Year is sort of an apostolate of liturgical living in the home, which means observing the church calendar through celebrating the seasons of the year and particular saints' days in the home, just sort of being aware of them and also using historic and also sometimes new ways to celebrate and learn about them. But my blog, catholicallyear.com, it all started just as a blog, and that came from my oldest son, Jack. I was preparing him for his first Holy Communion, and I had been raised Catholic. I kind of thought I knew what I was talking about, but I didn't at all. I didn't have any of the answers to his questions, and it really caused me to look more deeply into what we believe so that I could answer his questions. And when I complained to my spiritual director at the time that there wasn't just this one book that I could go to get all of these answers to these questions that my son is asking me, and he said, well, then you should write it. And I learned there that you don't complain to your spiritual director. He will give you a job. But it ended up being fortuitous because I wrote that book based on his questions, and Ignatius Press agreed to publish it and asked me if I had a platform. And I didn't even know what that meant. I wasn't even personally on Facebook or social media of any kind. So I started a blog and was deciding what I wanted to talk about. And I thought that these liturgical living traditions that I had discovered while looking into, what do Catholics believe, would be a good thing to inspire the blog, and the rest is history.
I've been trying to think when I first came across your blog. It has been a long time. I don't remember. It's been that far back. I've just thought, oh, well, I'm going to see what Kendra has on Catholic All Year. Like that. It was 10
years ago that I started it, 10 years ago in January. So
wow.
Yeah.
And now it's grown into so you maintain your blog, which is replete with all sorts of great stuff, but you've added several other things. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, we also have, everything I do is it's remembering back to when I was that young mom trying to figure all of this stuff out from scratch. Like, how am I going to teach my kids how to be Catholic? How am I going to teach my kids about all of these, cool Catholic traditions? And so as the blog grew, we just wanted, like, how can I make these resources more useful for families? So we have a membership that gets you a lot of printable materials for the month. We have a subscription box where you can get supplies and inspiration for 3 feast days delivered to your home every month. And we have a whole marketplace, because as my business was growing, I realized that I really appreciated having sort of a side hustle to keep me occupied. I really appreciated having sort of that creative outlet, but the logistics were really miserable, having boxes stacked up in my living room and, having the kids like packing everything, which, part of that is a beautiful thing, running a family business. But as I got my whole infrastructure for Catholic All Year set up, I realized I want to help other parent makers to be able to scratch that creative itch without having to do all the logistics themselves. So now we have the Catholic All Year Marketplace, where we also host and do fulfillment and shipping for other Catholic makers as well, so they don't have to have it in their living rooms. So yeah, it's been a fun ride, and I have a great team that I get to work with. And the most recent thing is our TV show Unformed, because the one thing I hear from everybody, and what I experienced myself when I was first, because I didn't make up liturgical living in the home. It's been around. There are books that have been promoting it since the 1960s, including one by Maria von Trapp, which is really sweet. But yeah, what I hear from people and what I experienced myself is reading about it and saying, well, that sounds great, but it would be too complicated for me to start doing. So when Formed reached out to me about doing a show, I said, I just want to be able to show people that it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just, like, here's what it looks like in one family's home. So it's a cooking show because people know what a cooking show is. So it's technically a cooking show, but really the idea is just be in my actual kitchen. We shoot it in my kitchen with my kids using my stuff. And so I just want to give people a glimpse at how one family is doing it, to hopefully inspire them to, try it for themselves.
I've seen your cooking with your children on the Formed page, and that's not quite what it looks like in my house, just for the record. It's a little bit messier in the kitchen, and a lot more spilling and things going on, I think, over here. But
one of the best moments in the show was my 3-year-old daughter helping me make soup, and she couldn't stop herself from just like trying handfuls of salt 2 different times. So
that was great.
We try to keep it a little bit real.
I was laughing so hard during that. When you start talking about that, it calls it to mind, and just the face that she was making. Like,
yes.
You're trying this again?
Yeah. And that's because the liturgical living in the home for us it's been such a beautiful family culture kind of a way to live. It's not, when I first started looking into it, I thought, oh, okay, this will be a good way to teach my kids catechism. But really you realize that it kind of reaches its fingers into everything in a beautiful way. And so it is accurate that my 3-year-old helps me cook, and so does my 20-year-old when he's home. And it really is liturgical living that gives me that push to be a mom who lets her kids help out in the kitchen. because on other days I'm busy, I'm running late, I didn't know what we were going to have for dinner, and I need everybody out of here so I can just do it. But on those days that we are celebrating a feast day, it's a family, affair. And we do it together. And it really has been an inspiration to me to be that mom who gets her kids involved, who talks about why we're doing it and how to do it. So it just really has genuinely been a great way to teach and to learn in our home for many years.
I really enjoy how you have, I'm going to use this word normalize, which I used in a previous conversation with Chantel Barros of Shining Light Dolls here recently. And I don't love the word, but it seems, I haven't yet to come up with a closer one. I like how you have decided to celebrate the liturgical year by the meals that you have and the decor in your home and the attire you all wear sometimes, or like the hairstyles that you do for the Feast of St. Perpetua and Felicity, those sorts of things. It's very similar to when we're preparing for the secular holidays for St. Patrick. Well, St. Patrick's Day is not anyhow. I think you know what I mean. Like how the holidays have become more secular in nature. That that everyone's all decked out, all their everything, and they're baking whatever in celebration of those holidays. But you've brought that same kind of zeal and intentionality to the liturgical feasts. And I think that it makes it really, it seems doable. It seems like, oh, I could do that. I'm doing it for Valentine's Day. I could do it for this feast day.
Yeah. And really some of the earliest places that I heard about any of this was in some of the books that were on our homeschool reading list. The Children of Noisy Village is one where you really see how they use there's a chapter in there of them preparing for Christmas, and I'm pretty sure they mention other feast days in there as well, but just these beautiful little traditions that seem to make so much sense to the children and are such a beautiful way to introduce these topics. And then a grown-up book that I'm actually rereading right now over this Lent is Kristen Lavren's Daughter, which it is intense and not for little ears. But it's just this amazing and very truthful saga that documents the life of this medieval Norwegian woman from her childhood through her death. And it's, mostly about her personal travails and struggles, but peppered in through it are these just beautiful liturgical year celebrations, all these feast days, and any date that the author mentions in the book, it's never a month and a day. It's always Saint somebody's day. And most of them at this point I know, which I don't think I did, like 7 or 8 years ago when I first listened to it. But now I'm like, oh, I know at least what month that one's in.
Yeah.
But it just feels like such a whole way to practice our faith, because it's easy to focus on the hard stuff. Like, how do I get, and this is what I experienced, how do I get my kids to sit still during Mass and pay attention? How do I get them to sit through the rosary without complaining? How do I get them to do Lent and mean it? And I think that that's so important. That's all of those things are still goals in my family. But if we just focus on that part, we're giving a really, truly incomplete picture of the practice of our faith, that it is those hard things, but it's also these beautiful celebrations. It's these funny, funny saint day, patron saints, like that. That Saint Lawrence is a patron saint of cooks because he was cooked, so he gets it. But the church has this humor, and the reason why food is such a big part of it for us, rather than, crafts and coloring pages, which I'm for, if the time is right. But really, historically, these feast days have been celebrated by families and parishes and villages and entire countries using particular recipes that people would look forward to having every year. And that is really the case in my home, that tying it together with food really makes it fun and memorable. and also, creates that family culture and that Catholic culture where, I think that all parents, we want our kids to stay Catholic, right? We want the things that we teach them and model for them to stick with them. And, I know for my kids that if they were to, if they were to go off and be nothing or another religion, they'd be giving up a lot of, a lot of these family traditions that they really have enjoyed. So I think that that's a really important side effect of, of really sort of embracing this as a lifestyle.
I've only been thinking about this a lot in the last year or so. We've talked to a number of people like Chantal from the Shining Light Dolls, and what you're saying here makes so much sense to me, because as a father, I particularly think when I'm not at my best, and, it's like everybody's fidgeting in mass and it's kind of grumpy. Okay. So grumpy there, they're trying to get everybody to sit down and actually focus and pray the rosary. Okay. It's like, come on, can't we just focus here? And as you were talking, it reminds me that if I'm not careful, the only experiences outside of the church my children will have are these overall negative sort of experiences when I'm at my worst. I'm hopefully not that way all the time, but when incorporating these things in their daily life, where like when we talk again, Chantal with Shining Light Dolls, the children are playing with images of their faith. And like you're saying, my kids love it whenever we do this sort of thing where it's like every year we do this, we have this meal, we celebrate in this way. It's something that they get excited about. So when that's linked to their faith and the saints, they now have this integrated and accurate exposure of what our faith is like. Again, it just made me think of the wedding feast at Cana. Our faith isn't all about sacrifice and hard things. The first miracle happening at a celebration and a feast. So, and with wine, which I appreciate, but
yeah, no, absolutely. I think it helps, like you were saying, to to create that balance, and that it gives us a little more room to fail in other areas, because we're not perfect. But the nice thing about the Catholic faith encourages us to strive for perfection, but it gives us a lot of support and places for support when we don't reach that goal. And I really think that living the liturgical year is just one more instance of that.
I guess this shouldn't be all new to me, and it isn't completely, but feast days, right? I mean, they're called feast days. There's a reason we should be incorporating these things. Yeah.
For some people, including me, it was a very daunting prospect to think, well, I'm going to incorporate I'm going to do all the things, right? I'm going to incorporate all the feasts into our family life. Well, that's a bit lofty goal to get started, right? But there are so many opportunities to be like, okay, I can do that one, and then I can do this one eventually. And pretty soon we've accumulated several that are just part of just part of life, part of our family culture and our identity. And I think it gives all of us, adults included, many more connection points to enter more deeply into our faith. Like, this is part of what makes us who we are. And all of these people that we're celebrating, these saints in heaven and these various feasts of the church, they share this belief with us, and they are important, and they thought it was important, and that can be inspiring to us, and with everybody's different temperaments and interests and gifts and everything, that there's someone for everyone, that they can find some kind of point of entry there.
Yeah. Well, and I always tell people that probably you are already liturgical living in the home. You're just not giving yourself credit for it yet. So give yourself credit for the liturgical living that you're doing. Do you have a Christmas tree? You are liturgical living in the home. Do your kids go trick-or-treating? That's Catholic. So, you are probably already doing some liturgical living in the home, and all I'm trying to encourage people to do is to just build off of that a little bit more. And one starting point that I think is really a great place to start is what I call the 3 special days. And I think that especially in a big family, it's nice to, kids want to be recognized and singled out and get some extra attention. So instead of just birthdays, which, I'm for it, it's fine. But we do 3 special days during the year. One, their birthday, one, their name day, which is the feast day of either the saint after whom they were named, or if, my name is Kendra, which is not a canonized saint name at this moment
yet.
So I use my my confirmation saint name, or just somebody that you've chosen or your child has chosen as a patron. And that name days are what was historically celebrated as somebody's special day in Europe. And there's something really cool about that like everybody who's named Matt would be, you'd have to remember to wish them a happy name day on, I should have picked one that I have September 21st, Matthew. I should know. But so we also celebrate their name day and their baptism anniversary, because if we're going to celebrate my kid's birth, then we definitely should celebrate their baptism day, because if we believe what we say we believe, that's a more important day. So I'm not saying take away birthdays, but let's just add some stuff. And we keep it pretty simple. The special kid gets to choose what we have for dinner, which hopefully I'm organized enough that I remember to ask them ahead of time and can actually go to the store and get what they want. But sometimes it's just you get to pick whatever you want for dinner from the stuff I have in the house. And then we have a dessert, and they get to eat off the "You Are Special Today" plate that my mother-in-law gave me. It's very cute. It's bright red. It makes you feel very special. And on your baptism anniversary, you get to blow out your baptism candle, if I can find that, or another candle if I can't. And so it's, in practice, it doesn't add much to my plate. But it really goes a long way towards, solidifying what we believe, that I think that we could tell kids all we want that your baptism is important and changes you forever. But if every year on their baptismal anniversary, they get to blow out a candle and eat dessert, like that really convinces them that this is something special and important. It's that, actions along with our words.
I'm laughing because I can so relate. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Where did I put the candle? Right?
We sell 3 special day candles at the Catholic All Year Marketplace, because not everybody kept track of where they put their kid's baptismal candle, and I am one of those people. So we have one that will cover any of those 3 days. It's fine.
Nice.
I've been thinking a lot about that particular issue, and as my eldest is now 19 or whatever, and I'm thinking about, okay, I'm still father, but when I become a grandfather, I'm going to have to take on that responsibility of helping my children to organize those things when they're too busy with small children to be thinking about, where did I put this stuff? But that's my goal. We'll see if I succeed, but if I become a grandfather, that will be my goal.
That's a really beautiful idea. I like that a lot. I would have benefited from that.
I found it more challenging as the kids are getting older and things are busier. Like I have them on the calendar. There are only certain things I write on the calendar in pen: birthdays, feast days, sacramental anniversaries, things like that. Those go in pen. Everything else is pencil. But even with it staring me in the face on the calendar, it seems like that's easy to get. Kind of happy baptismal day, and then on to the next or whatever. It's easy to get kind of swept up in it. We wouldn't do that for a birthday, but you're so right at how the importance of it in relation to everything else. It's a big day.
Well, I also think something that's important to remember is, what does the church do to feast days sometimes when they conflict with something else?
True.
Moves them. Just look at, St. Joseph's Day this year. There was a conflict, so it got moved. And it's okay to move family celebrations of feast days as well. And we do that a lot. So
I appreciate that. That's a nice date. Nice. Thank you. That was a nice hand up there. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. We had a baptismal day on Ash Wednesday this year. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we would move that.
Yeah. And I think illness and things like that. Oh, well. Okay. And something else I have really enjoyed watching and reading, your blog and your posts and your YouTube videos you did before your Formed show is the hospitality you show in celebrating these feasts. You bring people into them, like your St. Patrick's Day. You call it the hoolie, right? The big party that you have, and other gatherings. Even these things we've seen you do on Formed, you bring people into that, and I think that goes so far. And do you find yourself explaining to some folks like why are we having this particular party? And
yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's sort of this, apostolate of throwing parties. I always try to invite stragglers over for Christmas, or, like single guys from my husband's office, and, extended family members that we don't see very often. And, for all these parties, but the like having them over for Christmas is always especially memorable, because we do a family nativity play on the evening of Christmas Day. And so people who come over to my house get a t-shirt put on their head and wrapped around, and I hand them a stick and I say, all right, you're a wise man. I'll tell you what you need to say. And
that's great.
And we have a Michaelmas party where we have a devil piñata full of candy, and we tell the story of, the fall of the bad angels. And if you can defeat Satan with your wooden sword, then you get the sweet reward of candy. And so there would be like all these kids from around the neighborhood. We're like, all right, I don't care. I'll hit the piñata.
Sure.
It's a way to sort of share some of the joy of our faith in a really like just fun, accessible way that I think is non-threatening. And especially when I'm able to explain to people some of these cultural traditions and how this was observed in history, or how this was observed in different countries, I think that's sort of, the zeitgeist, the what's in right now is people being, wanting to learn about other cultures and wanting to learn about cultural practices. So I think people are pretty interested, in my experience, and not threatened by learning about the faith when it's presented in this way.
It's very attractive that way too. One of the, in terms of evangelizing, our living witness, the way we live out our faith, is what is most attractive or repulsive a lot of the time. So having these celebrations and the meaning for them, that looks a great time. I want to be a part of that. So that can be another way of drawing people in.
Yeah.
So we're recording this during Lent, but this episode is going to air around the high point of the church year, the Easter season. And so I hold off on decorating for Easter until like the evening of Holy Saturday, and I leave it up for the Easter season. Let's talk a bit about living out these seasons, especially that most festive one, and then ordinary time that follows, how we can kind of maintain the enthusiasm for the 50 days of Easter. I get to the end of that season and I'm looking at my Easter decorations and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I get I get this question from people a lot in regards to Advent and Christmas and then Lent and Easter, because there are so many really beautiful and meaningful pious traditions that are associated with Advent and also with Lent. And we go, pretty hard on both seasons. And I mean, we do all of them, and I don't recommend everybody jump in and do that, but we definitely actually do. And then you get to the Christmas season, or you get to Easter, and those things end. And then it's just kind of like, wait a minute, shouldn't I be upping my, pious traditions even more? And the way I see it is no, that those are the seasons to then relax and enjoy the fruit of your preparation, and not to try to take up a bunch of new things that, especially during Advent, it's easy to imagine it as this, preparation for a birth, just like we would prepare for the births of our children, and we get everything tidied and we purchase the things that we need, or we make the things that we need, and we get everything in order. And then once the baby comes, hopefully we're able to, relax and just spend time with our family and not put a lot of obligations on ourselves. And I think the same thing with Easter is, I think a beautiful thing about the traditional Lenten fasting rules were that, that it would create this stockpile of all this food that people weren't eating during Lent, because people would basically go vegan except you could have fish. And I don't know, anybody who is, fake urban homesteader like me, if you have chickens, that they don't lay as many eggs, especially at this sort of end of the winter when it's cold. So instead of everybody having not quite enough eggs, you just wouldn't have any. And then you would have this surplus throughout the Easter season that you could, dye and decorate with and eat. And the same thing, they wouldn't eat dairy. So you would have all this extra that you could enjoy during the Easter season, and that it would be, one less thing to worry about, that you would still, prepare all of these foods, because you're not just gonna, not milk your cow or let things go bad. So you would, make it into cheese, you would make it into things that would last, and then you would have all of these things to enjoy during the Easter season. So there definitely are things that we do, like you were saying, I keep our Easter decorations up all throughout the whole 50 days of Lent. I let my kids keep the plastic Easter eggs out, and once they run out of Easter candy to refill and hide for each other, then they end up putting like goldfish crackers or something in there. But basically, I think it's okay for there to be, we give up screens during Lent, so they watch more screens during Easter than during the rest of the year, because they'd given it up for so long. So that's not like peak pious practices, but it does make it memorable and fun, and gives my kids positive associations with the season that I think do just sort of create that underlying appreciation for Jesus's sacrifice. I think it does. And I think it's okay to not, for parents especially, to not put a lot of, new responsibilities on ourselves. I think it's okay to just, relax and enjoy and try to keep up any of those sort of family times, or, if you were saying a rosary and that was working for your family, try not to abandon that. And we have started some really good practices during Lent that we've been able to keep going. But I wouldn't worry about, trying to add new things onto your plate.
I also like that suggestion. I mean, as you're talking about going through Lent, I mean, from studies that I've seen, that's just kind of the right amount of time to start building up habits too. So what a good way to kind of think of that is, yes, this is your buildup, so try not to, you don't have to hopefully not lose all of those things, but hopefully you've built some habits that now it's easier. It's enjoyable by the time you get to Easter.
Absolutely. And that maybe if you've cut something out entirely, then maybe you're able to add it back in more moderation. And that I have definitely experienced that in things that I've taken up and given up for Lent that were so hard at first, that I suffered so much. And now even something for me, like I am a Dr. Pepper addict. I drink 2 Dr. Peppers a day. And when I first started trying to give it up for Lent, I was so miserable. And I definitely don't want to give it up all the time. I don't want to give it up all year, but I've gotten to the point where that attachment that I really had to it isn't there anymore. And that took many years. It took many years of white knuckling it through, to get to Sunday, where I am a proponent of not observing one's Lenten disciplines on Sunday. So I just get through till Sunday when I could have my fix. But I genuinely don't suffer it the way I used to. And I think it's still really good for me to give it up so that I can prove to myself that I can live without it. And just that, like, something as silly as soda, to have that genuine attachment in my heart where like I felt like I needed this thing to survive. And it was Lent, and it was many Lents of me sticking that out. And it's the same thing with us and screens. And I try to be really careful throughout the year with screens. And, we watch things together as a family, or my kids are allowed to play video games, if they play together and with a, set number of narrow selection. But when I force us to detach from that, it's not just them that have to figure out, solutions. It's me too, right? Because it's so easy for me to say like, oh, I need to get some stuff done. Why don't you guys go watch a movie? Well, I can't say that now, which means I have to engage in this situation. And something that we took up, I find it's always good, if you're going to give something up, to fill that hole with something else. We took up playing cards as a family over Lent, and it's been the silliest, most fun thing. It's been really great. So we've tried to learn some slightly complicated card games like hearts, and we had such a good time, filling that with something else that doesn't make a big mess and doesn't take, we would always mean to do board games, and board games are great, but board games take 3 hours and fill up my dining room table. But cards are great. And so I hope that we will keep up cards as a family activity. It's been fun.
We've played some cards here lately, and it's quite the novelty when you first bring out a deck of cards. Like, there's so much potential. Like, what are we going to do with these?
Yeah.
And yeah,
it's true.
We are spades players around here. It was a thing I played with my golf team, a game we played on the bus going to golf tournaments.
That's next. That's next on our to-do list, is to learn spades. And then I really want my children to know how to play bridge, and we'll get, fancy hats, and we'll be like little old people who play bridge.
We have not gotten to bridge yet. I was about to say that. Yeah. Grandparents are apparently. Yeah. No,
my grandmother had her
Yes.
bridge partner and her bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I just think we are missing stuff like that gets us, because you can talk while you're playing cards, and it's competition, but mostly friendly. I hope it seemed like it was friendly when
Right.
she would do it. But I think it's really great. And it's something that, she was playing bridge through her 80s. And how cool would that be if I can, get my kids into bridge, and then they teach their college friends. It's a genuine life goal of mine.
It's a great one. My grandmother's bridge group, they were tight. They were together for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to hear some more behind the scenes about your Formed show. What's it like? You film it at your house. You write the shows. What can you tell us more about behind the scenes a little bit?
Yeah, it's been so much work, more work than I could have imagined, would go into a 22-minute show. But it's been really, really fun. We have a great team of people. Our executive producer is Leo Severino, who produced the film Bella and Little Boy, and he's got a movie that's about to come out on St. Francis Cabrini that he just texted me a picture of the Pope watching it. He just took it and did a screening for the Pope. So he's great. And our camera, I'm not going to get the name. I'm not going to get the roles correct of what the jobs are, but my good friend Elizabeth Mirzai, who also shot my YouTube videos, my little 3 to 10 minute YouTube videos, she has an Academy Award nominated short documentary film. So when she's not making my YouTube videos, she's doing really, really well respected real documentaries. And so she is doing she's a director of photography, that's what it is, on the show. And the dean of students at my kids who go to a traditional Catholic or a classical Catholic school, but brick and mortar school, he's the dean of students at the school, and was moonlighting as directing a couple of the episodes. We've got another photographer. It's a 3-camera show. There's lights all over, and and equipment, and all these cords everywhere. And we do 12 or 13 hour days. For the Lent episodes, we shot 4 episodes in 2 days plus a half day for B-roll to shoot all those little like this thing in the corner and like these like birds. You have to remember to shoot all of those things. And so it was really long days. But it's funny in I think, it's the end of the St. Francis of Rome episode, if you, which is the one where Barbara eats all the salt. But that was when we eat the food at the end of that episode it was the last thing we shot. So that was on, after it was at like 9 p.m. after 2.5 days of shooting. And my kids are pretty much 7:30 to bed people, but we'd been, they were in our little sort of ready room eating cookies. And so they're all yawning and it looks all bright outside because we have lights shining through a like sort of fake screen. So it looks like it's daytime, but it's actually 9 p.m. and they're yawning and they have been eating, like we started that day eating shrimp etouffee at like 9 a.m. And then 9 p.m. they were eating soup and pretzels, and we're finally able to go to bed right after that. But I feel so grateful that this opportunity came up when it did. My husband passed away this summer after a 16-year-long battle with cancer, and I wondered, what am I going to do now that Catholic All Year has always sort of been a hobby, and it's been it has paid for itself for a long time now, but it wasn't something that could support my family. And I was thinking, all right, am I going to have to give up homeschooling? Am I going to go get a job at my kid's school or something? And then this opportunity came up, and it's something that we were able to do, all of us as a family. And so not just me go out of the house and get a job, that, this opportunity came to us. That was something that we could do all together in our house. And I was really grateful for the timing of that. And as much as it is a lot of work, it is a genuine reflection of how things usually look at our house, even though it's not usually at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. It is really what we do. And so it was fun to get to share that with the kids.
As I was watching some of your shows, I was thinking it's really amazing, but do you find that it's difficult? Well, the term Catholic celebrity, so both for yourself and then your children now becoming part of that, is that something that you have to be mindful of, or is that pretty easy does it just come naturally with where you're at?
No, I think that's a really good question and an important concern. And, I tell people all the time, please pray for famous Catholics, because it's a weird place to be in, especially priests, because I think that's, famous priest is a dangerous place to be. And so we really, really need to pray for them. I have found it to be so far pretty manageable. We have a sort of running family joke that we get recognized by one person everywhere, whether national parks, amusement parks, gas stations, like we get recognized by one person everywhere. We can handle one person. There are so many, the sort of the core people who have been following me have been following my blog for 10 years. And it's more like, they see us as a family friend. And my daughter, my second oldest, is at UMary in Bismarck, North Dakota. And she says that people come up to her and, they walk by her and they recognize her and they say, "Oh, my mom said I should say hi to you."
Right, yeah.
So that's what, that's what my kids get, is people's moms telling them to be nice to my daughter. So that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Well, what sorts of things are you looking forward to coming up with the show or with Catholic All Year? Or
yeah, so the show is a little up in the air now. I'd be happy to do more. It's just that with with the equipment and the crew that it requires, we are seeing if we can secure funding to make more episodes. So pray for us, please, for that. but yeah, it has been really fun, and I would love to have it be. I'd love to get at least, all the way around the calendar so that at least it is all year. So I'd love to have some ordinary time, summer and fall episodes. And then, if there was an interest in it, then, there's a lot more content to be had. So please, anybody who's listening, if you will watch some of the episodes on Formed for me, you can usually, a lot of parishes have a free subscription. So you can just go to formed.org and type in your zip code or your parish, and you can get through a lot of parishes, you can get access for free, or you can do a free 7-day trial and watch the show and let Form know if you like it. And maybe we'll get to make more. But other than that, there will eventually be a cookbook that features the recipes that we do on Formed. So I will hopefully finish that up this summer. That's been really fun. And we had a great prep chef who is a graduate of the school that my kids go to on these last episodes. And she was a big help. And so I think I'm going to lean on her expertise a little bit to get everything in book worthy recipe form. So that was fun. And then we're still doing the subscription boxes. We're still, we're trying to improve the membership experience for people. I think we're going to redo the website, which is always terrible while you're doing it. But the Trisha Dugas, who I just reached out to out of the blue on Instagram, when my book, The Catholic All Year Compendium, was coming out, and because I just liked her art style, and asked her if she would illustrate the cover to that book. And she did the Catholic All Year Prayer Companion, which is the second book in sort of that liturgical living series. She did that cover too. And now she's working full-time for Catholic All Year as our art director. So for a very long time, I was just sort of cobbling together everything for Catholic All Year on my own. And it's nice to have people who actually know what they're doing now helping me out around there. And it's not all just me, trying to figure it all out. So she is, is going through and making everything a little bit prettier and a little more user-friendly. So yeah, I think that our goal, as always, is just to keep creating content that will embolden people and make them feel like they can give this a try, because genuinely, I think it's been such a blessing for my family.
I can definitely put a plug in for your Formed. I'll focus in on that one, the St. Francis of Rome that you're talking about, but great information about cooking and food and saints and the history of pretzels and the great advice for soup and collecting those leftovers and freezing them, and it's compact too, so it's something we can watch as a family and kind of get inspired maybe to try some of these things ourselves. But lots of good stuff there. It's just so much fun to watch. So people should check it out.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And, I was thinking of it as it would just be, a cooking show like they have on, on Magnolia Network or things like that. But it really did turn into, when I started planning the episodes, it's like, I really can't do this. I'm trying to explain to this team of people who actually make shows, like, I really can't do this if we don't let my kids do it with me. And they're like, oh, that, that complicates all of this a lot. Like, yes, I do, but it does in real life as well. And I think that because the kids are in there, my friends keep saying like, oh, my kids love your show. I'm like, really? Your kids? Like, all right, great.
Yeah.
That we didn't set out to really, to make a kids show. It's not officially a kids show, but it has been so fun to hear back from people who are watching it as a family and that their kids like it.
Yeah, I was watching the latest episode. I've seen them. So the St. Nicholas episode, St. Nicholas Day sneaks up on me every year. I don't know why it still does now. Anyhow. Okay. So the latest episode I was watching in preparation for our conversation today, and my girls are middle schoolers, and pretty soon they were both right there. Like, what's this? What do we watch? They were into it too. They really enjoyed it. And I think it's great to set before them as as they can kind of put it in their file, as I like to say, like, this is something to be thinking about as you're getting older and taking on your own household and things like that. So that's great.
That's right. Like we as parents, we want to give them tools that they can pull out of their toolbox when they need it. And
yep. It's a great way to do it. Well, as we're coming to the end of our time together, do you have maybe 1 or 2 tips to bring it back to homeschooling? Do you have maybe 1 or 2 tips for families who are homeschooling with littles in the mix?
Yeah. So as long as I have been homeschooling, we've always had little kids in the home. And I tried a lot of different things. I tried, putting the little kids down in front of a show. I tried, having sort of complicated like crafts things that they could only use during school time. But all of that requires sort of they won't stay watching TV if there are other people in other parts of the house doing other things. They would always come and find us anyway, or want to tell me about something that was happening. And so, and I can't manage to keep up the upkeep on, the bead sorting thing that I can't do stuff like that requires, I can do big one-time projects. I can't remember to refill the bead thing.
Right.
So what I have found is to just like my 3-year-old believes that she is in school and doing school with us, and she has her own chair and she gets to sit there and, I'll give her a coloring book or something, but not even usually then, but like we have some old little, school desks that I got from when our school moved locations. And so she has her own little desk and she gets to sit at it. And I think that is enough for my little kids to just believe that they are part of what is happening, and that they listen, as I'm doing lessons with other kids. My 5-year-old who's in kindergarten, I do I do a couple things with him on his own. But basically they just get to be around while we do it. And, with the older kids, I think that there was more sort of a little more struggle and disruption. I highly recommend getting to kids 9 and 10 because they are just super chill. So much more chill than the older ones. But so I'm sure that's part of it, but they are really just sort of happy to, sort of be gently involved with us. And that's something that I, have really been doing throughout, is that it ended up taking more time to try to have them out of the room, or try to have them, with specific things to do, rather than just sort of invite them to participate in what I'm doing with the older kids, even though, it's kind of over their head, but they think they're doing school with us, and that's good enough for me.
Sure. They're part of the action. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And then maybe a word or 2 of encouragement for finishing our school year as well. We're in that part of the year. We're like, okay, the end is in sight.
I know.
How do we get there?
I mean, and we will be so happy once the weather turns around here and it's not like 40s in Southern California. And we are going to really want to go outside, but yeah, I do try to, I appreciate having some structure. And so I have our list of things that we're going to accomplish for the year. And this year we decided to take it a little bit easy on ourselves. So it's been a manageable year for us this time, but I know sometimes I've committed us to a lot of things, but I think that even for homeschoolers, I feel a lot of pride in us, trying to do a job well and actually get it done. And then we definitely we are summer takers around here. I don't do homeschool of the summer because I try to get work done, or, write book manuscripts and stuff in the summer. So we don't keep up with things the way some homeschoolers do. But, the thing that's most motivating to my kids is to try to get done before their siblings are done from the brick and mortar school. So that's always a big motivation for us, is if they can get done, a week before, then they can really lord it over the real school.
To go. Good stuff. That's helpful. I know it can be, we're almost there. We're almost there. Just hang in there a little bit. Yep. And so true about wanting to end well, wanting to do a good job throughout and end it well. Also, like finishing a piece of music, ending it well.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't want to have just sort of thrown my hands up and been like, all right, we're like, this is it,
Yeah.
to instead like, all right, we're done. And
yes,
we have the same, we have bagel bites and root beer floats for when we start school, and we have bagel bites and root beer floats for when we end school. So there's always the bagel bites and root beer floats to look forward to when we finally finish that last math lesson.
Love that. All right. Well, in our show notes today, we will have links to the Catholic All Year website and the Formed show also and Kendra explained kind of how to avail ourselves of the Formed subscription or access to the Formed to be able to watch these episodes. They're great. I've enjoyed them all. So check our show notes for lots of links to stuff we've covered today. Kendra, what a gift it's been to get to meet and visit with you today. Thank you so much for coming to visit with us on the Kolbecast.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.